All right, let's talk about belly fat. Everyone wants to get rid of it fast. The internet is filled with magic teas, miracle exercises, and 10 minutes to ab scams. But the reality is you can make noticeable changes in a week if you focus on the right fundamentals. You won't go from a big belly to a shredded six-pack overnight, but you can look leaner, feel lighter, and start real fat loss progress. Let's break it down into 4 steps that actually work. So here's the deal with belly fat and really fat loss in general. It's not magic. It's not some ancient secret. It's not a new supplement that came out last week on Instagram. It's energy balance. Calories in versus calories out. That's it. I know it sounds boring compared to melt fat with this tea or do these 5 weird exercises that torch belly fat. But boring doesn't mean ineffective. In fact, boring is usually what works because biology doesn't care about your entertainment. It cares about physics. If you eat more calories than you burn, you store energy, and guess where your body likes to put it? Yep, your belly, your love handles, your hips. If you eat fewer calories than you burn, your body needs to make up the difference by burning stored energy, aka fat. It's that simple. But of course, simple doesn't always mean easy. Now, when people hear calorie deficit, a lot of them immediately think starvation, diet, and that's where they mess up. You don't need to slash your calories to the floor and live on lettuce and water. That's not sustainable, and your body will absolutely fight back. Hunger hormones go crazy, you feel miserable, and within a few days, you're face first in a pizza. The trick is a moderate deficit. Think 500 and 750 calories less per day than what you normally burn. That's enough to create real fat loss, but not enough to make you feel like you're dying. Over the course of a week, that's a few pounds down. And here's the thing. If most of your fat tends to sit in your belly, you'll notice it there first, at least visually. You're not spot reducing fat, but you're reducing fat overall, and that will show up in the mirror. The way you set up that deficit is flexible. You can track calories with an app, you can simply cut out obvious junk, or you can use some simple tricks. For example, 1 can of soda a day is around 150 calories, a latte, another 200, 300 calories, a big plate of fried food, easily 700, 800. Cut those out and replace them with water, black coffee, grilled protein, and vegetables, and boom, you're in a deficit without overthinking it. People love to complicate this, but honestly, most fat loss comes from just eating fewer calorie-dense foods and more nutrient-dense ones. Protein and veggies are your best friends here. They fill you up, they're low in calories, and they keep your energy stable. Now let's address the elephant in the room. Belly fat is stubborn. A lot of people cut calories for 2 days, look down at their stomach and say, why isn't it gone yet? Sorry, but fat loss isn't a light switch. It's more like a dimmer. You turn it down slowly, and it takes time. In 1 week, you're not going to reveal shredded abs unless you were already close, but you can absolutely flatten the belly a bit and drop some water retention. The key is consistency, not perfection. A small deficit stuck to every single day is 10 times better than a massive deficit you abandon after 48 hours. Another thing to keep in mind, liquid calories are sneaky. Most people don't realize how many calories they drink. Juice, fancy coffees, smoothies that are basically milkshakes, alcohol, all of that adds up. One of the fastest ways to get into a deficit is to stop drinking your calories. Stick to water, diet sodas if you need the flavor, or coffee and tea without sugar. You save yourself hundreds of calories per day, and you don't even feel like you're dieting that hard. That's low-hanging fruit right there. And while we're talking about practicality, you want to make your meals work for you. If you try to eat tiny meals 6 times a day, you'll just be hungry all day long. For a lot of people, fewer, bigger meals are actually easier. Imagine 2 big protein-heavy meals and maybe a snack or shake in between. You'll feel more satisfied and less like you're on a diet. The name of the game here is adherence. Can you stick to it for the week without going insane? If yes, then it'll work. If no, it doesn't matter what the math says, because you'll quit. People also worry about metabolism slowing down. Let me just clear that up. Your metabolism doesn't crash after 1 week of a deficit. You're not going into starvation mode. That's a myth. Yes, your body adapts a little over the long term, but in the short term, like 1 week, you're fine. If you're in a deficit, fat is coming off, period. What usually happens is people underestimate how much they're eating. They think they're in a deficit, but they're still snacking here and there, sneaking bites, or miscounting. That's why tracking, at least for a while, is super useful. You don't have to track forever, but for a week, Track honestly, and you'll be shocked at how many extra calories you were eating without realizing it. Now here's a bonus tip: front load your protein. Protein not only helps you keep muscle while losing fat, but it also keeps you fuller for longer. Chicken, fish, lean beef, eggs, Greek yogurt, whey shakes, those are staples. When you build your meals around protein, hitting a calorie deficit becomes way easier because you're not starving all the time. Combine that with vegetables for volume, and you'll look down at your plate and feel like you're eating a lot, even though the calories are low. So to sum this up, a calorie deficit is the #1 driver of belly fat loss. You don't have to suffer, you don't have to cut out entire food groups, and you definitely don't need to buy some magical fat burner. You just need to consistently eat a little less than your body needs for energy, and the fat will come off. In 1 week, it's not going to be extreme, but you will see the difference, and more importantly, you'll have proven to yourself that the process works. And once you get that momentum, you can keep going beyond just 7 days. So let's talk about activity, and I don't just mean going to the gym and crushing yourself on the treadmill for an hour. What I mean is movement. The human body is designed to move, and the amount of movement you do during the day has an absolutely massive effect on fat loss, especially belly fat. People tend to think that exercise equals fat loss, but here's the reality. Formal exercise like lifting weights or running might only account for a small fraction of the calories you burn. The bulk of your daily energy expenditure comes from just being alive, digesting food, and this is the big one: non-exercise activity, things like walking, fidgeting, standing, climbing stairs. That's what's called NEAT, or non-exercise activity thermogenesis. The fancier the word, the simpler the meaning. It's just how much you move outside of the gym. And NEAT can swing your calorie burn by hundreds, even 1,000 calories per day, depending on how much you're up and moving. So when we're talking about losing belly fat in a week, one of the smartest moves you can make is to ramp up your daily activity, because let's be honest, most people don't move much. We wake up, sit in a car, sit at a desk, sit during lunch, drive home, sit on the couch. Maybe we hit the gym for 45 minutes, pat ourselves on the back, and then sit the rest of the day. That 45 minutes is great, don't get me wrong, but it's not going to undo 23 hours of inactivity. Fat loss is about the cumulative burn, not just the isolated bursts. Here's the kicker. Walking more can often burn more calories across a week than your actual workouts. Let's say you normally walk 3,000 steps a day. That's not much, maybe 30 minutes of total walking. If you bump that up to 10,000 steps, you're burning an extra 300 to 500 calories per day, depending on your size. Do that for 7 days. That's 2,000 to 3,500 extra calories burned, basically the equivalent of a whole pound of fat gone just from walking. No treadmill sprints, no burpees, no death circuits, just walking. That's why activity is such an underrated tool in the fat loss toolbox. Now, people often ask, okay, but what activity should I do? The answer is, whatever gets you moving more. Walking is king because it's easy, it doesn't crush your recovery, and you can do it anywhere. Take the stairs instead of the elevator. Park farther away from the store, do a 10-minute walk after meals. Walk while you're on phone calls. It's not glamorous, but belly fat doesn't care about glamour, it cares about the math. Every bit of movement adds up, and those calories burned are exactly what tip you deeper into a deficit without even touching your diet. Now let's talk about the gym. Strength training is fantastic, and yes, you should lift weights. Why? Because when you're losing fat, you want to hold on to your muscle. Muscle makes you look leaner, stronger, and keeps your metabolism from dropping too much. But as far as fat loss goes, lifting weights doesn't burn that many calories compared to movement throughout the rest of your day. You might burn 200, 300 calories in a tough lifting session, but if you then sit all day, you're still missing out on the biggest calorie burning opportunity, which is just staying active. So think of lifting as protecting your muscle, shaping your body, and making sure when the fat comes off, you actually look good underneath. For calorie burn, walking and general movement will get you way further. Cardio also has its place, but again, you don't need to do hours of high-intensity cardio for belly fat to shrink. A few moderate sessions per week can help create a bigger deficit, sure, but if you try to out cardio your bad diet or your inactivity, it won't work. You'll just end up tired, hungry, and more likely to overeat. It's better to use cardio as a supplement, not the main strategy. If you want a quick win in a week, something like 20-30 minutes of brisk walking or cycling per day on top of your regular lifting and steps is plenty. And here's something people rarely consider. Your body is sneaky. If you smash yourself with too much intense cardio, your body might unconsciously make you more lazy during the day. You train for an hour, but then you flop on the couch the rest of the day and cut out 500 steps without even realizing it. So don't rely on punishing workouts. Think sustainable activity you can keep up, not just in 1 week, but beyond. The great part is that increasing daily activity also helps with other things besides fat loss. It improves digestion, it reduces stress, it helps you sleep better, and it just generally makes you feel less sluggish. And all of those things indirectly help with belly fat too, because stress and poor sleep can make your body hold on to water and fat around your midsection. So you're hitting multiple birds with one stone. Now, some of you might be thinking, okay, but if walking is so great, why don't more people do it? And the answer is simple. It's not sexy. Nobody brags about going for a 15-minute walk after dinner. Nobody posts on Instagram, check out my epic stroll, bro. But just because it's not flashy doesn't mean it's not effective. In fact, the boring stuff is usually what works best. Walking, moving, taking stairs, all of that low-key stuff is the difference maker for belly fat because it's consistent and it doesn't wreck you. So the bottom line here is this. If you want to lose belly fat in a week, yes, you need the calorie deficit from your diet, but you can double down by moving more. Track your steps, set a goal, and hit it every day. Don't make it optional. Make movement a non-negotiable part of your day, like brushing your teeth. If you nail this, you'll not only burn more fat, but you'll also feel better, have more energy, and you'll set yourself up for long-term success beyond just 1 week. One of the fastest ways people see visible changes in their belly isn't from losing pounds and pounds of fat. It's from reducing water retention and bloating. That's why when you hear someone brag, I lost 5 pounds in a week, a good chunk of that isn't fat, it's water. And you know what? That's not a bad thing. Because when you've got a bloated stomach, when your belly feels puffy, a lot of it isn't body fat, it's extra water your body is holding. So if we can manipulate some of those factors, mainly carbs and sodium, we can make your belly look flatter, tighter, and leaner in just a week. Now, first things first, carbs. Carbohydrates are not the devil. Anyone who tells you carbs magically make you fat doesn't understand basic physiology. Carbs are energy, they're fuel, and they're actually great for training performance. But here's the catch. When you eat carbs, your body stores them as glycogen in your muscles and liver, and each gram of glycogen brings along about 3 to 4 grams of water. So if you're eating tons of carbs, pasta, bread, rice, sugary stuff, you're also storing a bunch of water. And where does that water often sit? Right around your belly. So if we want to see a visible difference in just a week, cutting down slightly on carb intake can help shed some of that water weight. Notice I said cut down, not eliminate, because the moment you go zero carbs, sure, you'll drop water like crazy in a couple of days, but you'll also tank your training, feel like a zombie, and probably binge by day 4. That's not the goal here. The goal is smart control. Keep carbs in, but make them slow digesting ones, and keep the total amount moderate. Things like oats, sweet potatoes, brown rice, and fruit are great. They don't spike your blood sugar like crazy. They give you energy, and they don't make you balloon with water retention the way a giant pizza does. Another thing people miss, timing. If you're trying to look leaner in a short time frame, it makes sense to eat your carbs around the times you're most active, like before and after workouts. That way, your body uses them for fuel and recovery, not for sitting around while you're on the couch watching Netflix. And if you eat them earlier in the day instead of piling them on at night, you'll probably feel less bloated when you wake up in the morning. Now let's talk sodium. Salt is not evil either. Your body actually needs sodium for fluid balance, nerve signaling, and muscle contraction. If you cut sodium completely, you'll feel weak, tired, and maybe even dizzy. But here's the thing, most people consume way too much sodium without even knowing it. Restaurant meals, fast food, canned soups, chips, sauces, all loaded with salt. And when your sodium intake is sky high, your body tends to retain water. That retention shows up as bloating, puffiness, and you guessed it, a swollen belly. So the trick is not zero sodium, but controlled sodium. Stick to whole foods you season yourself. That way you know how much salt is going in, and it's usually much less than what you'd get from takeout. Grill some chicken, steam some veggies, throw a pinch of salt on them, and you're fine. Compare that to a big fast food burger and fries, which can have 2,000 milligrams of sodium in one meal, and you start to see why you're holding water. Here's where it gets interesting. When you balance carbs and sodium together, the changes can be surprisingly quick. Cut back on processed junk, stick to whole foods, keep your carbs moderate and your sodium under control, and within 3 or 4 days, your belly literally looks different. You'll drop that puffiness, your waistline feels tighter in your clothes, and psychologically, it's motivating. You look in the mirror and say, oh wow, this is actually working. That's huge, because motivation is half the battle. Now, let's be clear, you're not burning fat directly by lowering carbs or sodium. Fat loss still comes from the calorie deficit we talked about earlier. But what you're doing here is creating an environment where you look leaner faster, and that helps you stay on track. Because most people want to see results, and when they don't, they quit. So this is kind of a hack: manipulate water weight and bloating while still being in a deficit, and you'll see progress in both the short term and the long term. Another thing, hydration. People hear cut sodium and they start drinking less water. Big mistake. If you don't drink enough water, your body actually holds on to more water, like a survival mechanism. So the trick is to keep your water intake high. Think 3 to 4 liters a day for most people, while moderating sodium and carbs. That combination helps flush out excess water and keeps your belly flat. It sounds counterintuitive, but more water equals less bloating, as long as sodium is reasonable. One final point. Don't get carried away. Some folks hear about carb and sodium manipulation and think they're going to outsmart their physiology with extreme tricks. They cut carbs to zero, eat plain chicken and lettuce all week, and sure, they drop a bunch of weight. But then the moment they eat a slice of bread, they gain it all back. That's because it wasn't fat loss, it was just glycogen and water. What you want is a middle ground. Lower the carbs slightly, cut the excess sodium, keep drinking water, and stay in that calorie deficit. That's sustainable, and the visual changes actually motivate you to keep going. So the takeaway here is simple. Carbs and sodium aren't your enemies, but controlling them is a powerful short-term strategy to flatten your belly in a week. Less processed junk, more whole foods, moderate carbs, and smart sodium use. Do that and combine it with your calorie deficit and increased activity, and the belly fat will not only shrink over time, but in just 7 days, you'll look and feel noticeably leaner. When most people think about fat loss, especially belly fat, they think food and workouts, calories, cardio, abs, exercises. That's where their head goes. And don't get me wrong, those are important, but there's this other piece that almost nobody pays attention to, and it's one of the biggest reasons why a lot of people spin their wheels. That piece is sleep and stress. You can have the perfect diet on paper, the best training plan, and still struggle to lose fat if you're not sleeping enough, or you're constantly stressed out. And the frustrating part is, people treat sleep and stress like optional side quests instead of main missions. But your physiology doesn't care about your hustle culture. If you're underslept and stressed, your body is not in an optimal state for fat loss, period. Let's start with sleep. Sleep is when your body does its recovery work. It's when your hormones regulate, when your nervous system calms down, when your muscles repair. And it's also when your hunger and satiety signals reset. If you get enough sleep, say 7 to 9 hours of quality rest, you wake up with normal appetite control. But if you cut your sleep short, maybe 4 or 5 hours, your hunger hormones go haywire. Ghrelin, which makes you hungry, goes up. Leptin, which tells you you're full, goes down. Translation: you're hungrier than normal, and it takes more food to feel satisfied. Combine that with being tired and less disciplined, and suddenly that calorie deficit is out the window because you've eaten an extra 600 calories without even realizing it. And that's just one night of bad sleep. Imagine a whole week of it. You're not only hungrier, but your willpower is trashed. Your workouts feel harder, and you start reaching for comfort foods just to feel better. It's a disaster for belly fat. You can try to fight through it with discipline, but biology usually wins. That's why prioritizing sleep is not just about feeling rested. It's about literally giving yourself a fighting chance to stick to your diet and training plan. Now let's talk about stress. When you're stressed, your body pumps out cortisol. Cortisol in short bursts isn't bad. It's part of your fight or flight system. It wakes you up, helps you respond to challenges. But chronic stress means cortisol stays elevated. And here's the problem with that. High cortisol makes your body hold on to fat, especially belly fat. It's not some myth, it's well documented. Cortisol also increases cravings for high-calorie comfort foods, salty, sweet, fatty stuff. It's like your body is saying, I'm under attack, give me energy-dense food right now, which is not exactly helpful when you're trying to stay in a deficit. So stress is a double whammy. It makes you store fat in the worst place, and it makes you want to eat more of the worst foods. And the kicker, most people try to out-diet or out-exercise their stress instead of addressing it. They add more cardio, they cut more calories, and they wonder why nothing is working. But really, their body is just in survival mode, clinging to fat while their brain is screaming for junk food. Now, here's the good news. Fixing sleep and stress doesn't have to be complicated. Start with the basics. Go to bed and wake up at the same time every day, even on weekends. Make your room dark, cool, and quiet. Put the phone down an hour before bed. Yes, scrolling social media in bed is destroying your sleep quality, whether you want to admit it or not. Caffeine, great in the morning, but if you're drinking it at 6 p.m., don't be surprised when you're tossing and turning at midnight. Small changes here can make a huge difference. As for stress, you don't have to quit your job and move to the mountains to fix it. Simple daily practices go a long way. Take a walk without your phone, meditate if that's your thing, do some deep breathing, talk to someone instead of bottling everything up. Even lifting weights or doing cardio, when it's not overdone, is a great stress reliever. The point isn't to eliminate stress completely. That's impossible. The point is to manage it so it doesn't dominate your physiology. Here's another underrated factor: relaxation and downtime. People treat rest as laziness, but rest is literally fuel for fat loss. When you take time to relax, you lower cortisol, improve recovery, and make it easier to stick to your plan. Think about it. If you're constantly burned out, how likely are you to meal prep, hit your steps, and avoid binging at night? Not very, but if you're calmer, more rested, everything feels more manageable. And yes, I know some of you are thinking, I'll sleep when I'm dead, or stress is just part of life. Sure, but you're making fat loss way harder than it needs to be. Belly fat is already stubborn, and if you're giving your body every reason to hold on to it, no sleep, high stress, it's going to dig its heels in. If instead you create a low-stress, well-rested environment, your body is more willing to let the fat go. So to put it simply, if you want to lose belly fat in a week, you can't just think calories and cardio. You need to think recovery. Sleep enough, manage stress, and you'll not only make fat loss easier, but you'll also look better, because less stress and more sleep means less water retention, less bloating, and a leaner looking belly. In just 7 days, if you tighten up your sleep schedule and give yourself real stress relief, you'll see a difference in the mirror, and you'll feel the difference in your energy. The bottom line is this: your body isn't just a math equation of calories in and calories out. It's also a hormonal system, a nervous system, and a recovery machine. If you treat it like a robot and ignore sleep and stress, it's going to fight you. If you respect it, give it what it needs, it'll reward you by letting go of that belly fat faster. You don't have to be perfect, you just have to be consistent. Prioritize sleep, reduce stress, and watch how much smoother fat loss becomes.